So we're back again. Tonight I was inspired by a video I saw in a Facebook group I follow, a recovery Facebook group. It's private, so I'm not gonna name drop it just yet unless they say it's okay. But they shared a YouTube video by Project Unbroken, and they talked about whether or not addiction is a disease. They kind of posed it as a question, and then they went over how they felt about it. And it's a very controversial topic for a good reason. Addiction affects a lot of people in a lot of different ways, indirectly, directly. Most often it tears people's lives apart. With that comes a lot of emotional baggage. So just addiction all around is a touchy subject. But I definitely think this is a conversation that we should be having, and I think it should be an ongoing conversation, because the more we talk about it, the more people will understand. And like most things in life, it's not a simple yes or no. The disease model is a logical definition for a non-addict. It helps you understand the underlying components of addiction without actually having to experience it, because you don't really know what addiction entails and what it does to your mind and your body without living it. At the same time, I don't know if the definition is good for addicts. In fact, I honestly think it does more harm than good for a lot of addicts. They absolve themselves of all responsibility related to it, and that just is not right. You have to own up to your shit. The disease model is definitely a double-edged sword. You know, it helps make non-addicts understand addiction a little bit better. It helps them empathize with addicts and feel more compassionate and open and receptive towards addicts. However, it definitely is just an excuse for addicts to become complacent, you know? And that's never acceptable. You can definitely put the work in for your recovery. It's not completely out of your hand. So let's break the disease model down a little bit. Basically, addiction is a disease because it changes the brain. It changes the way that it functions. It rewires its circuitry. It hijacks the reward system and just makes nothing else pleasurable except drugs. You know, sex isn't pleasurable, relationships aren't pleasurable, eating isn't pleasurable, basically being alive isn't pleasurable. These changes are chronic, they're lifelong. You know, long after you stop using, your brain remains that way. I mean, that makes sense, I understand, but a lot of things change the brain. You know, learning changes the brain. We might not learn as much or as quickly. You know, our brain might not change as much as it did when we were younger and learning, but your brain changes throughout your lifetime. But that doesn't really hijack your reward system. You know, I get that. But love definitely hijacks the brain. Your brain reacts to love like it does drugs. This could explain why some people are notorious for dating one crappy person after the next. You know, they're so overwhelmed with the feelings of new love that they overlook all the bad signs and they just, you know, go head over heels in, and then they end up in bad relationship after bad relationship after bad relationship. They're addicted to falling in love, essentially, and that's truly just lust. Okay, so is addiction a disease? Yes. Is it chronic? Yes. Are you powerless? No. Not at all. You can definitely manage your addiction to a point that it's like essentially in remission. Other diseases are like this too. Type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, depression. You have to make positive life changes to kind of manage your disease into remission. Make diet and lifestyle changes, you take better care of yourself, you see a doctor, you take medication, you complete therapy, which kind of leads me to my next point. I think that medication-assisted treatment, buprenorphine, Suboxone, Subutex, even methadone, it's going to be the tool of the future. It's going to change the way we treat addiction. A lot of people argue with the disease model and medication, but abstinence-based treatments aren't really working. The success rate is 5 to 8%. That leaves a lot of people unsuccessful. And especially for active addiction, you can't just stop using. You know, every night you want to stop using. You want to wake up and not use the next day. And the next day comes and you're trying to get high. That's just how it is. You're not going to go cold turkey unless you're forced into a detox, in jail or rehab. You might try and you might be successful. You might be the, 1 in a million, but most people aren't going to get very far with that. which is where medication-assisted treatment comes in. You can literally go from active addiction to maintaining your addiction and living a normal life within days. Why is that such a bad thing? It's also very, very important to note that medication is not the only way to treat addiction. Like, you have to combine medication with therapy. You can't do medication without therapy. You can do therapy without medication, but together it is the power couple. And you can make lifelong changes. You can learn how to function as a person. While sober, I say that hesitantly because people are going to be like,
you're not clean if you're taking Suboxone.
That's another argument. You know, you hear people say all the time, well, they're just replacing one drug with another. Yeah! That is an incredibly overly simplistic way to look at it. Yes, you're right. They are replacing one drug with another. But one of those is an illicit street drug, and one of those is, under doctor supervision. You're missing so many important factors about what medication-assisted treatment does. It obviously gets them off of illicit drugs. They're not shooting up. They're not sharing needles. Their risk of overdose dramatically decreases once they're in treatment. They're able to hold a job. They're better parents. They're better partners. There's just so many benefits. And yes, there are going to be people that abuse it. That's just part of life. We cannot control that. And yes, there is a risk of overdose if you take that and you're not supposed to. If you are not an addict and you don't have opioids in your system, you can overdose from Suboxone. That's just kind of common sense. So we need to handle our medication safely and properly and take it under doctor's supervision. And yeah, there's going to be those people that decide they want to shoot up their Suboxone or Subutex. But that's a terrible idea. That is going to lead to abscesses and infections, and it's going to make your blood go septic. And that is going to kill you. Trust me, I know. I've lost someone I love very much that way. But the good of this medication greatly outweighs the bad. It's just saving lives. It's such a valuable tool that we should really look into it more. We don't know everything about medication-assisted treatment right now. Back in the day, Suboxone used to be prescribed for a week, like 5 days in a detox program. Monday, you took 8 milligrams. Tuesday, 6. Wednesday, 4. Thursday, 2, Friday, you're done, you're out. Now they're talking about long-term treatment with it, possibly lifelong. Is that the right way? Maybe, I don't know, we'll find out. I think that it's good that we're still trying, that we're not like set in stone, like this is the way that it has to be because this is the way that we've done it. Like, no, we're trying to figure out what daily dose is best. Should we take it twice a day, once a day? Should we prescribe tablets or sublingual strips, There isn't an expiration date to the duration of treatment because it's such an individualized process. What works for me won't work for you. It might not, it might. Like, there's so many factors that are important in determining how long your treatment will last. And ultimately, it's a decision for you to make under the guidance of your therapist and your doctor, but you're going to be the only one keeping you clean. So it's your choice if you want to start it or if you want to stop it. You're going to hear this conversation a lot on my channel. This matters a lot to me, but I don't think that I know everything about this subject. I am definitely open to discussion. I want to hear your opinion. If you think I'm wrong, prove me wrong. Tell me why. Show me supporting evidence. I am more than willing to admit that I'm wrong. I can't be the best version of myself if I'm not listening to critics, if I'm not listening to people with opposing views. So sound off in the comments. Let me know that you like this video by giving it a thumbs up, subscribing, Tell me that you're gonna stick around because I'm gonna keep putting videos out. It would be cool if you stayed. Thanks, guys.